who here feels like the industry has been going through significant changes for the past 2 years, let's say? All right, good. That's good. So I guess this conversation absolutely makes sense. I'll actually start here with Chris. So what key changes do you feel happened in the industry on a global scale during this period?
Which industry are we referring to?
So creative industry, for creative professionals, designers, illustrators.
Okay. Well, the elephant in the room is AI, machine learning. And I think we're just starting to see the beginnings of that and how it's going to ripple across every industry, not just the creative industry. And I think Alex Ramosi talked about this in one of his videos where he thought, like, we thought things like creativity would be the last to be replaced, and it's more of the mechanical things that would be first to replace, and it turns out the opposite is true, which calls into question this magical thing that we do as creatives. How special is it that a machine can sometimes do a much better job than you can? And so I kind of look at this, and I speak in creative circles, so everybody's really scared of AI. And they don't want it to happen. They think it's unethical. They think it's raping content and intellectual property. It's creating massive disruption in a very negative way, and they want to complain. There's an anti-AI movement that's trying to happen. And I said, look, if everybody in this room agreed that this is happening, and if we had the power to stop it, let's agree, and we'll stop it. But I don't think that power is in us, and so we have to make a decision right now. And the decision is really difficult. Do we sit there and put our heads in the sand and try to fight this thing and ignore it with actually really no power to change that? Or should we try to at least play with the tools, see how it can enhance our workflow and boost our creativity and take away a lot of the negative stuff that we don't like doing to allow us to do the stuff that we should be doing? Here's the example. Anybody here work in motion design do rotoscoping still? You do rotoscoping still? Rotoscoping kills the human mind. Now, I know there's an art and science to it, but if the software can cut things out for you in Photoshop, it can make perfect masks for you almost now. If you can do that, why would you still want to do that? So what we need to look at it is AI is not as a threat, but as an enhancer to what we do. And the argument I would make for some of you to consider is there are people who are neurodivergent, people who are on the spectrum of all different kinds of ways of thinking. And what I see are people who are super empowered in their divergent brain that use AI tools to enhance and give themselves an opportunity to compete against people that they could not before. I'll give you an example. There's a woman I know. Her name's Sherry Horowitz, and Sherry is a fine artist, designer, and she's also a poet. So her work's all over the place. Yep. So she's very good with words, and I think she could not compete against all the image makers that exist today, those young kids who can whip out amazing imagery. But she is so good at using Midjourney that she can create just about anything. And so she spent about 3.5 months getting involved, first being afraid of it, questioning it, and then becoming sort of masterful at it, that last year she was named one of the top 20 AI creators.
Wow.
Created like massive opportunity. So a person who's really good with words and has a kind of divergent brain can use that and do really, really well. And I could just tell you story after story, but I just think you have to just make a decision with yourself right now. If you're not going to explore AI and you formed an opinion already, that is you potentially just shooting yourself in the foot without even being informed. Before I have an opinion, I want to try, I want to play, and I want to push it to its boundaries, and then I'll make a decision. You're supposed to use evidence before you come up with a conclusion. And I think many people come up with a conclusion and then find the evidence that fits. And I think it's going to be very problematic for you.
Right.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
No, that's fantastic. Absolutely, I agree that AI is something that we need to keep our eye on at the moment. I actually have a bunch of questions about that, so we'll probably dig in a bit more. What about you, Joana? Besides AI, do you see something significant that changed? And especially if you have a more local angle on it, but feel free to go global if you think that's more important.
Oh, this is loud. Definitely that's something top of mind. AI is something that I've been researching and consuming day and night content about to try and understand how can we leverage it as an agency. I've been talking a lot about it with my team, but the other shift, like you asked, like how has the industry changed in the last 2 years? I I think the biggest one that has affected us as well is remote work.
Yeah,
That's another one.
yeah. That's still a big topic,
Yeah.
especially with.
And it breaks my heart seeing offices as beautiful as this that
Yeah,
are
don't I
empty
know.
most of the time.
Don't I know?
And I think it also calls for us to like ask critical questions of like how is it affecting our creative work as a team? Like, are we collaborating as effectively as we could? Are we actually being more effective at home? Is that really true? Could we benefit from in-person synergies? So I think that's the only other
Yeah,
shift that
actually, I
comes
want to
mind.
dig in a bit into that because I know that once we start talking about AI, we'll
Yeah, we'll
be
be
till midnight talking about that, and for sure we want to be doing that as well. So from a Portuguese point of view, I mean, you have your agency here in Porto. How has this new reality, where people are more used to getting international jobs, like they will, I mean, I know people who will not even have an interview with a Portuguese company any longer. Like, no, if I'm going to move into another company, it has to be in US-based, UK-based, whatever based, but not a Portuguese company. How do you cope with that, and how does that affect, your team?
So we haven't been hiring a whole lot, but we were in conversations with someone who I realized then I was competing with a Finnish company opening here.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe not even opening here actually, but so now I feel that we need to step up our game even more as an agency based in Portugal, because then we're now competing on a more global scale.
Yeah, yeah. So the village got larger, and you have rich neighbors paying a lot better potentially, and yeah, it's something to have in mind. So that was actually one of the things that I was trying to tackle even before COVID hit, because I felt like that was the direction that the industry was going, because you can do your job from literally anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. And I for sure knew what kind of company I wanted us to be. I wanted to be on a global stage and not on a local stage. But for sure, COVID just accelerated the whole thing a lot. And that was actually one of the reasons why I sold Moxie back then, because I felt like this company who wanted to acquire us was an international company. They had what it took to take the team that I had to the level that I knew they needed to be and wanted to be, on a financial level, on a challenge level. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. The more I talk to people, the more I see people moving away from the idea of working in an office, working with a team, and they just care a lot of the time about the money that they're getting from this overseas companies. But I have a feeling that there is a big loss in amidst all of that, like connection, learning from people. How do you feel about that? How do you deal with the fact that some people maybe were hired after everyone went remote? Do they create the same kind of connections? Do they learn the same way from their peers in the team?
I would think so, yes, because we try and incentivize a lot of in-person meetups. But I've like my mom's a teacher at university, and she doesn't believe that us being fully remote we can be as, and she's a fashion teacher, I should add. So she's like, there's no way you guys produce as good work being remote as in person. But I don't agree. I think that now with like so many tools, creatives, like what's your opinion? Like, can we be as creative digitally as we can in person when we're working with teams?
I think so. There's some challenges for sure. And this is going to be a little surprising for me to say as an introvert. I miss talking to people in person. You know, I read more than just your voice and the little postage stamp size face, and I read your body, and I read your gesture and the way you breathe, I can hear it, you know?
Yeah,
And
you can hear my nerves.
I can. I can. And when we're doing role play earlier, someone was a really heavy breather. Obviously, they're hyperventilating on stage. And I won't say who you are. It's somewhere in that area, that general vicinity. But I think what we tend to do as people is we kind of focus our energies too much on the things that we lose, and we don't focus enough on the things that we gain. So let's talk about the positive part. I'm a positive person, or at least I pretend to be. And every time there's a seismic shift in the way we work, whether it's AI, COVID, or something else, I have to look through the lens of, why is this a gift? Versus, God, doesn't it suck? I wish it was back to the way it was. So the way I look at it is, okay, let's look at it from our perspective. COVID was horrible, but it created opportunities for us to figure out what was essential to do in an office. And what it did was it eased the burden of traffic. It reduced pollution. Animals were able to go and return back to their natural habitat. We saw those beautiful flamingos in India. I was like, what the heck? We saw turtles like, hey, you humans, thanks for leaving us alone for a while so we can have our babies again. That was really cool to see. And so we start to say, like, we can question this urban planning about city and suburban life. Like, what are we doing? Like, do we need an office space? It started to ask those kind of questions. And what is an office space good for? And we need to rethink. And we need to build, again, anew. I also think prior to COVID happening and working from home, I had difficulty getting people to pay me to speak. It was a real challenge. And the reason why is, you can guess, well, to organize an event, it takes space, it takes people, security, food, and all these kinds of things, and it contributes to your ticket price. So when you pay $1,000 to go see something, what actually goes to the people who provide the content and value to you? Very, very little. Because most of it's eaten up by the venue, logistics, volunteers, and all the kinds of security, a lot of stuff. And so when we went on the lockdown, people would say, hey, we need you to speak at a conference. I'm like, cool, it's $10,000 bucks. They're like, oh, okay, let me think about it. What are they gonna do? What is a conference without the main contributor, the speakers? Now they don't have the fees associated with it. They actually started to realize the benefit and the real value is in the speakers. You have crap speakers, you have a crap event. And it made it so easy, and I was shocked. Like, you're gonna pay me $10,000 to do an hour Zoom that I can do in my underwear from home? I love it. Let's do this again, to a degree. But I still miss the energy, the vibration, the frequency of people and the wavelength that I get in something like this. And it's strange for me to come so far from one side of the fence to the other, where please leave me alone, I just want to work on my computer, to, hey, I miss y'all. I don't mind you breathing on me or spitting on me. It's cool. Not literally, but figuratively. But some of you still spit on me. It's horrific. And it flies on my face. And it's, well, whatever. But I like that. So that's changed. That's super positive. And my team got to live wherever they wanted. 2 weeks into the pandemic, we're like, you know what? Come back to the office, get your stuff, get everything you need, see you later. So we had people move back to Canada so they can be with their family. Somebody had elderly parents and they were concerned about their health. And they were asking, can I work from home now? Well, now you can live wherever you want. So we just saw our entire team scatter. And I think for them and their quality of life, I thought that was great. What's the benefit as an owner? I don't have to have a big space anymore. We were paying for 13,000 square feet of space. We're down to 3, and we don't even use the 3. So I can use the money for something else, something much more important. Quality of life, maybe pay people more, maybe, you know, give a better bonus. Who knows, right? And we don't feel that same pressure anymore. So those are beautiful things. Getting paid to speak, reducing the environmental impact that humans have, letting people live and work where they want, how they want. And there's some challenges, of course, but let's focus on the positive stuff. We can make everything else work. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's good perspective. Yeah, so sometimes we start focusing on the negatives, and that becomes a limiting belief of the potential behind a change that is happening. That's true. So on the topic of limiting beliefs, and we'll close the Portuguese scale insight. One of the things that actually today we talked about was the perception that some people have that most clients, international clients, only hire Portuguese because they're looking to hire for cheap. Actually, I want to run this exercise. Who thinks most international clients are hiring Portuguese just because it's cheaper? who believes that. Okay, okay, that's actually good. Anyone want to jump in on that? Do you feel that way? First of all,
I think Chris and I share the similar opinion on this. And I personally don't believe in geography as like a limiting thing for us to get clients. Some people said that I was crazy to move back from London, where I started. Like Gif Design Studios started in London. I was living in London. I was working in London, and everyone was like, "You're crazy. You're doing the move the opposite way." Like Portuguese people leave Portugal to go build their careers in London, and you're doing the opposite. But I never saw it that way. I don't believe that our clients hire us based on our location, and it's what you were saying earlier. Like, if you don't if you get a .com, if you like showcase your work and what you do, like, do they even need to know? You didn't say that, but
yeah, especially nowadays.
I think it's.
I think nowadays, especially because people are more accustomed to hiring remote, that's one less barrier, because often they will not even ask you where you are. They will just assume you're available at whatever time. Maybe they will sort of figure it out because of your time zone. But I think that becomes less of an issue just because of that change. But I think there are all other factors that play in that perception of, oh, I'm not able to pay. To increase my prices because I'm Portuguese, because they expect me to have low prices. I think there are a lot more things at play.
Yeah, and I have seen it, that some people believe it, and I've actually had Portuguese companies come to me and say, okay, that's what you charge for international clients. What do you charge for local clients?
Family and friends.
I'm sorry.
Family and friends. It's a small country. I'm sure we're cousins somehow.
I'm not. Well, I'm not going to say to my team, like, hey guys, like, sorry, this month we're going to pay you a little bit less because now we're going to work for our local clients. Like.
Yeah. So, Chris, how do you think, or how would you diagnose such a limiting factor? How would you prescribe a solution to get past that?
Whenever you have a belief, you should do yourself a favor and examine it and try to find evidence that both supports and counteracts that belief. Just take a science-based approach and look for truth and try to be objective and non-biased when you're looking for it. So like I said before, a lot of us come to a conclusion, then we find the evidence to meet that conclusion because it's too painful to face what I would consider the truth. The truth is, maybe it's you. And that's so hard to say, like, it can't be me, it's got to be the world and racism and reverse racism and discrimination. That's got to be the case. So I know people in much more impoverished communities that are third world or developing countries, and they have the exact same mindset. And they're like, well, the Portuguese have it good because at least they have the internet and roads and traffic. I'm like, yeah. So I was in Cairo, Egypt, where the annual income at that time, if you were doing really well, was about $7,500 a year. Just process that a little bit there. That you're doing well. You could tell your mom, I did it, I made it. I did $7,500 a year. And they're like, well, we can't do it here. I said, well, let's think about that. So you're saying no one in Egypt has ever gotten work on the international stage, has made a name for themselves. Is that what well, I'm not saying that. So you're just saying people like you who believe that to be true, and then you start telling yourself a story. And I'm going to say this, and let's fight. I'm in a fighting state of mind. So if you guys want to argue, let's argue, okay? I'll put it out there for you right now. I think the internet is geography agnostic. It doesn't care until you make it an issue. You've already started to negotiate against yourself. Maybe you put out work that you think is substandard and you don't put in the energy, and so as soon as they say jump, you reduce the price, and you're like, whatever, right? I look at it like this. Joanna can live wherever she wants and do whatever she wants. The clients don't care. Can you do the work or can't you? Are you a reputable person, aren't you? Are you a good communicator or aren't you? Do you ask good questions? Do you care about the results in which I care about? If you do, I don't care where you work. I could run my entire company from here. Nobody even knows where I'm at on purpose because I don't want any crazy showing up. You know, who cares? I mean, look, let's just bring in some questions here. Let's just do some honest talk, right? How many of you guys know what my ethnicity is? Do you know where I'm really from? Do you know my birth name? It's not the name I use. Do you care that I no longer work out of Santa Monica? I don't even live in the Palisades anymore. Why does that matter? It's the quality of the things that you do. So what we do is we look at the results and we reverse engineer and say, well, it must be because of this cause. That's not causal, that's correlation. And we put two things together, it must be this, right? And we do this all the time because, like I said, it's hard to face the truth. It's much easier for us to make up some story that fits our narrative. So if you can't do something, oh, it must be because I was born that way, or because my parents said this, and you just blame and blame and blame, you know? And I forgot who said this, but you know, when you're done blaming everybody, there's one person you forgot to blame, and that's you. And you should move that person to the top. And I know this. In my life, I've never been able to get anybody to change anything. I've tried with my wife, it doesn't work. For sure it doesn't work. I try with my children. Sometimes I can exert a little bit of influence because, you know, I had them at the baby stage and I could whisper lies and brainwash them, so some of it worked. But most of the times you can't change anybody. You can't change a client, you can't change a lover, you can't change a partner. The only person you have a shot at changing is you, and you see this person every single day. Talk to that person. Be kind to that person, encourage that person, and say, you can do more, and let's do it together. That's it. So, yeah, you know, it sucks to be in Portugal. Okay, well, that's your reality. I know if I moved here and brought 5 people in and who are willing to do whatever I wanted them to do, they will create a new reality, and that's how it will change. There are people here who are not from here, people from here doing well, winning international work, commanding the highest price possible. So you have to ask yourself, what's the difference between you and them? And usually it comes down to one thing, it's your belief system.
That's good. So I'm thinking, I'm sure there's someone in here who still feels, yeah, but every now and then I get a call from a client or whatever, and they're saying, oh yeah, but that's way too expensive.
Same not for you.
I've talked to other agencies.
Talk to all of them.
Yeah.
Why don't you call somebody from China, the Philippines, and Mexico? Call whoever you want. But if you want me, and there's, last time I checked, 1 of 1, I'm a non-fungible token.
I'm a non-fungible talent.
Yeah, there we go, right? I am. And if you want me to do it, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm not saying people are worse. If you want me to do it, this is the price. That's okay if you don't want to. I respect that. No problem.
Yeah, I think that's a mind shift. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes, well, let me rephrase that. It's ultimately you, because whatever you do, it's on you, and you need to watch what you're doing in terms of how you are attracting clients, etc., etc. But if you're bringing bad clients to your neighborhood, and if you're giving them too much time, you're not qualifying those clients early on, then yes, I think it's absolutely on you to fix that. It's not a problem of the industry, it's just your business that's not properly aligned to what you are trying to achieve. That's at least that was my experience with my agency. I was able to escape that box very early on, thankfully, and the good thing is the more you do good work and work with good clients, more you get of that. You attract more of that. That was yeah. Looks like you're going to say something.
I want to, but I don't want to cut you off.
No,
so
no, that's.
I gesture like when you're ready.
I'm trying to ignite something that you will spin one of you off.
Okay, I'm spinning. I'll tell you this, and try to answer this question. If I put 4 portfolios in front of you via Behance or whatever one of these websites are, and I delete all the information about where they're from, you're telling me you can pick up the Portuguese one from the American, from the British one? If you can, you have a special power. It's called delusional thinking. You cannot tell, and if you can tell, it's your fault, because you need to close the gap. Everybody always asks me, how do I get work like that company? Show me that company's work. Look at your work, look at their work, look at your work. What's the gap? Close it. In this day and age, you can literally reverse engineer just about everything. So if they're using some kind of cool typeface, go to what the font and figure it out. Like, oh, that's what they're using. Okay, what's the thinking here? How are they juxtaposing imagery and typography? What's the color palette? What's the technique? Type in, how do I do these colorful gradients? And it'll tell you. Again, it comes right down to this. It's because, I'm sorry, I'm going to get violent with you guys. We had some pretty rough role plays earlier today. I'm just going to say it. Most of you are just wannabes. I want this, I want that, just stop talking. Do it or don't. But it just sounds like whining. I was told you're allowed to complain 1 time. The world's terrible. Okay, it's terrible. Now you're just a whiner. Go do something about it. And I used to be a whiner, so I'm telling you, as a former recovering whiner, I used to say this, and you'll see what I'm saying, okay? I used to teach at a private art school. I taught there for 15 years. I'm like, this freaking sucks. What am I doing here? Oh, it's because I love teaching, right? That's the lie. I just told myself a lie. I love teaching. It's for giving back. It's not about money. No, it's so the school's going to exploit you, and they can exploit the students, and I'm stuck in there. So I'm facilitating the exploitation of students and teachers. I find that to be problematic. So one of the last meetings we have as a faculty member, because I knew I'm on my way out, my rule is burn the ship on the way out. Make sure there's no food left for anybody. So we sit there, everybody's talking like, oh, you know, some students are hiring other students to do their work. Is this wrong? I just had enough. I had to say something. I said, you know, why are we talking about stupid issues like this? I'm sorry. I just had enough. There's like 20 people sitting in a room, all former teachers, really well-established people, all people I respect, but we're like having childish conversations, academic concerns. Welcome to the real world, people, okay? The real problem here is this. It costs $23,000 a semester to go to school. We owe our students and the faculty more than this. This I find problematic. This is the thing. I don't know if you heard it. I didn't say it like this. I thought it like this, but this is the thing. It's called the internet, where people are learning online all the time. And if we jumped on that, we could do good things for our teachers and for our students. You want help? I'll help you. And they took a meeting with me, and I told them, here's what we're doing. Here's how I can help. I'm not doing this for any money. I just want to see our school succeed. And then they laughed. They literally laughed. Huh, you're just being an alarmist. We've heard this before with desktop public. We blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I see how it's going to be. I'll see you in a couple years. So I have to shut up too, because I'm whining, I'm complaining. I'm like, we should do this. When I say we, I mean you all should fix it because there's a big problem. And so I remembered, stop complaining. Accept it if you can't change it, or do something about it. Do something about it. That's it. So if you guys are complaining, you're a whiner. Not a winner, a whiner. It sounds similar, but it's not.
So would you suggest that people don't include location at all because it's not a relevant thing in their website?
You know what? Because I'm a cocky bastard, I'll put in Portugal. And I'll put in twice as much money. Do something about it. You know, the purpose in life is to win work while being the most difficult person. That's my goal. You know, we would tell our team, we're the least experienced of all the companies that we're going to bid against, and we'll be the most expensive. Watch us, we'll get the work. And we get the work. And why is that? Like, you know, one of the last big client projects that we did was for a company that was worth $13.5 billion. I accidentally called them a $9 billion company. They corrected me. He's like, excuse me, don't take off $4.5 billion there off our net worth. Okay, all right, sorry. When we worked with them, and they were in the commercial real estate development business. They build the buildings that Netflix rents from, for example, okay? Class A buildings, super expensive, beautiful buildings designed by Gensler and Associates. And we go in there, and they first ask us to pitch, and we won't pitch. They ask us for ideas. We don't tell them ideas. They ask us to show us proof that we can do this. We don't have the right proof. We have other kinds of proof. We walked in there. We had a conversation. I asked questions. I told them about our thought process, and we mapped it out, and we walked away with the gig. And they hired us for more and more work. Later on, here's the kicker. When we become friends, they say to me, Chris, do you know why we hired you guys? I'm like, please tell me. I need to know. Because we have no relevant experience. They said to me, the fact that you could make a self-storage facility look amazing, a self-storage facility that's like ghetto real estate for them, I know you can do amazing things with what we do. And to me, that's how you win. You come in there as the underdog, you use your intellect, your ability to have conversation with people, your ability to connect with them and listen to them and make them feel seen and heard. That's what people are buying. Right? So we didn't get to do this in the workshop, but we do this exercise, right? The exercise is, what are you selling? What are they buying? What are they getting? And what's the messaging? So I'll share it with you because we ran out of time. So what do you think Nike sells? What are they selling? Literally, what are they selling?
Shoes, clothes.
Shoes and clothes. That's it. Shoes and clothes, in that order, I think, right? Shoes and clothes. But what are you buying?
A lifestyle.
Sometimes status.
Some kind of lifestyle, yes. I think it's like you want to join a tribe of athletes.
Yeah.
And what are you getting? What's the emotional benefit of that? I think that there's greatness in all of us, that there's the spirit of the athlete in all of us. So you see what they sell, what you buy, what you get, and how they communicate to you are three different things. So what did they say? What's their rallying cry? Just do it. Get off the couch, stop complaining, and just do it. Whatever it is you want in life, just do it. Take that first step. Whatever size and shape you are, all of us can be athletes. We can live that dream. We'll never be Michael Jordan, some of us, but we can live through that. So when you think you're selling websites or UX or product design, you're stuck on what you sell and not what the client's buying. They buy something very different. When you can understand their emotional state and how they form their identity by working with people like you, that's when you start to play the game at the next level.
I'm taking it back. I'm digesting.
Sorry, I didn't brush my teeth.
No.
Oh, something else?
You're good. So you're talking about ways for someone to essentially stand out. And I think that's another change that's happening in this space, which is when I first started working with designers, which was way too many years ago, probably 20-something years ago, it was very different. I felt like most designers were wannabe artists, people who aspired to be artists but ended up working on a computer or whatever, so they were designers. And they were, I think, not very professional about it, and I'll elaborate what I mean about this. There was, as far as I could tell, no method, and I have an engineering background, so I was looking for logic, for some kind of structure. I couldn't see any kind of method to the way they approached things. Even when certain projects were fairly similar, I often felt like they were just having a completely different approach, and they couldn't articulate why they were approaching it differently. I feel like nowadays designers are a lot more informed. I think they think they're much more similar to engineers nowadays than they were back then. That's what I mean. Engineers and designers, I think nowadays are very similar. So we have various disciplines of specialization inside design. People study those fields. They help even evolve those fields. Where was I going with this? I had a question in
Was it about generalists and specialists? Process?
Yeah, probably that. Yeah, let's go with that. With the specialists. So it's a different field. Back then, a lot of people were just generalists. They could kind of get things done. But nowadays, you have the space crowded with people who specialize in things. How can people, or what's your feel about specialization, and what are some tips for these folks on that?
I think I should give this one to Joanna. I don't want to take up all the time. And then maybe I come after you. Ladies first.
So should I just
You rip them a new one if you want. But that's you, not me.
In terms of, it was funny because all I could think of was the person at the workshop that said she was happy being a generalist because she was looking for new creative challenges. And it's something that I've faced as an agency owner as well. Like when I tried to specialize for what we started to become known for, I got some pushback from the team because they said we're going to get bored. We're tired of doing this sort of project over and over again. And an aha moment that I got in today's workshop was that in trying to please the team, and we have been branching out and trying to serve more industries, it's actually hurting the business. There is benefit in specializing. You're going to get to know the problem of your clients a lot better. You know, when we were talking about it in the workshop, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this avatar so well, but now here we are trying to land more e-commerce clients, and I don't know the nuances as well as I know this industry. So of course I'm not finding it as easy to close. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's try and go with let's try and specialize. Are we really going to be demotivated because we're not going to have as many creative challenges? no, like, how can we be creative about each project that comes our way? And also to whoever said that, like, okay, but money doesn't buy you happiness, I think was a...
I think she's still here. I see
Who is
her.
it?
I'm not calling out any names. But she has bangs.
My vision on that is that, what about if we make a lot of money so that we can then, you know, hire people to do it with, so that it feels fulfilling, so that we can get fulfilled by other aspects of the business, and then why not then find a way to then why not remove ourselves from the business so we can take up hobbies and find other ways to find that fulfillment. That's the way I think about it. Like, there are things in the running of the agency that aren't all fun. So
Yeah.
I believe that I prefer to think of, okay, well then let's specialize, let's scale, let's build a stronger team, and then maybe, you know, like, we now have Friday afternoons off, and now we're able to use some of that profit to do funner things as a team, and that's...
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, I'm like not being very succinct. I'm getting a little bit tired, but like,
Yeah.
that's how I view it.
actually, I want to add something to that. When we started specializing at Moxie, so one of the ways I used to sell that, because I had pushback definitely from the team as well. One of the ways I sold them on that was, hey, like, if we get really good at the basic stuff, we can push the boundaries of what's possible at the moment, because either it will become incredibly cheap for us to execute certain types of projects, so bigger margins, yay. Potentially we can compete on price when we know we have to compete on price for some reason. Sometimes you don't want to close certain projects, but sometimes you do. If you have the funds, as you said, you can also hire certain specialists for certain projects that you know will just elevate the quality of your output, and that continuously feeds your brand, like your business, whatever you're putting out there to the world. Hopefully it will continue to attract more and more and more people who want to be doing that kind of work with you, people who want to hire you to do that kind of work. And ultimately, I think most people want to be doing really good work, they want to be learning, and if you have the money, if you have the right projects, well, ultimately you want options, and you need to have the basic stuff done really easily in order for you to have those kinds of options. And I think when I sold them this idea, and I'm probably not being as eloquent, I sound a lot more eloquent in Portuguese, by the way. But I think that's sort of carried out through the team. They aligned themselves with this idea. But it's not without its challenges, for sure. There are certain things that become very repetitive. People get a bit bored, but if we get really good at it, we can knock that off really quickly and spend proper time doing the exciting stuff. That's the way I see it.
We have to understand the motivation of someone who works for you. They're not responsible for the financial part. That's what makes us old, lose our hair, and get wrinkles and get fat, right? And so their primary obligation is to have fun. And so that's how they're going to tell you. Their criteria for success isn't whether or not there's a financial future. That's not even their concern, and that's not their problem. So they want to have fun, and fun things seem like give us brand new challenges all the time so we can flex and exercise our creative muscle. But you're a leader, and so leaders need to lead. And if necessary, leaders follow other leaders, but leaders do not follow followers. That's why they're called leaders. So it's like letting the tail of the dog tell what direction the dog should go. I'm not calling you a dog, I'm just saying. Just be mindful of that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's the dog?
So they want to have fun. And so you can find ways to have fun. And people keep thinking that if you do the same thing over and over again and you become world famous, first, best of breed, first class, the sought after expert who competes against no one, gets paid tons of money, speaking book deals, that is a horrible future. I don't know what world you guys live in. But that's what you aspire to have. Now, here's the thing. If you do what everyone is doing, you will get what everyone's getting. If you do what no one's doing, you will get what no one's getting. And so no one wants to put in the work. The reason why doctors in traditional society are paid so much money, because it takes a lot of work, dedication, commitment, and sacrifice to become a doctor. You have to go through undergrad, grad, and then post-grad school. You have to do a residency. And so you're going through all this, and you're going through so many hurdles just to become a doctor. You have to get insurance, and if you mess up a couple of times, you lose it all. So the stakes are high, and that's who traditionally makes the most money. Traditionally, it's all changed right now, okay? And so they have put in the work, effort, and they get through this place because it's so hard to get there. We know that. So what do you want to do? You want to have fun. You want to play. You want to like work on a website one day and make a sculpture the other day and do a VR project next day. And the problem is you're working on a very top level superficial layer. You haven't seen the problem many times. You don't anticipate the problems because you don't even know what it is. You don't know what you don't know, and you just fumble your way through. And we think by being a generalist, we're going to get all these great, juicy projects, when the opposite is true. When we have deep expertise and we establish ourselves as a person of influence, a key person of influence, someone who knows what they're doing, we get all the best opportunities. And you know what we get to do with all that money we're making? We get to acquire new skills, hire coaches, take very expensive workshops, and keep building out our skill base. So this is what happens. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer because the poor are stuck with a poor mindset. Rich people understand this. Focus, dedication, sacrifice gets you the rewards. What you do with the rewards is now entirely up to you. You can retire early if you wish, but I find it super fascinating. I'm a deep diver. So a couple of years ago, I started playing around with the internet, and I somehow accidentally grew a following. I wasn't even sure what I was doing. And then people would introduce me. It's like, he's an internet marketing expert. I am? I didn't even know what marketing is. I know what the internet is. And so what did I do? I felt very insecure about this term that was being thrown around. So I read 6 books on marketing. They say that if you want to be good at anything, just find the topic that you want to be good at, search for the top 3 to 5 books that are highest ranked from the biggest known authors in that category, and read them and reread them and take notes and draw diagrams and then try to teach it. Before you know it, you can be an expert-ish at the thing. So I read all those books, I started teaching from it, and now I can say with some degree of confidence, I probably know at least, if not more, than what quote-unquote most marketers know. And I'm applying it every single day. So I have practical knowledge, I have theoretical knowledge, and I'm a smart person. I have the creative ability to make things as well. I don't know how to run ads, but I know what makes them tick and what makes them effective or not. So now I'm into the next space, and I just want to do that. So how many people here, I'm just going to ask, by raise of hand, whatever your industry is, how many people have read 5 books on whatever industry you're in? That's amazing. I'm going to question you in a little bit. I mean read, like literally read the words, right? Because designers think reading is turning the pages and looking at the pictures. Okay, of all the people that raised your hand, tell me what, one person tell me what it is that you studied. What was the topic?
Marketing, but I actually read about design because I felt like I needed to know the ground basis of it so that I could then like understand and work with people from the
Okay.
So I read a lot about like branding, like brand design, but I also read a lot about marketing, so I kind of like mixed both, and I read Martin Omeyer.
That's not marketing.
No, that's not. That's branding. That's what I meant.
I know.
But then I know you because you had it on your list, and it was because you said it once about him and had him to read that I read it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Okay, hold on. Before you go crazy on us, right? You want to be known for marketing, yes?
yeah.
I'm not trying to convince you or sell you. I thought you said marketing. I'll clear my ears here.
Like a lot of golden
Okay, see, it's already going crazy right now. We can't even get to the bottom of one question.
in my life, so I'm like, yeah.
Come together. Come. Marketing. Tell me the 5 books you read on marketing. Go.
I don't know if I can remember all of them. I'm really bad at names and stuff.
Okay, take your time.
I know that I have.
You want to search on Amazon?
Um,
Purchase history, maybe?
I have to go back. I've read. I don't know if it's really what you consider marketing, but I consider it a lot of marketing because I really like how he portrayed it.
I like you, but my confidence is dropping fast. It's like gravity. It's almost at 0 now.
The night.
Phil Knight, Shoe Dog?
Yeah.
I didn't read that book, but at least I know the title.
Yeah.
See how I didn't read the book, and you supposedly read the book, and you don't know the title of the book? Tell me the 3 most salient ideas from Shoe Dog. You can't. Could you teach it to us now?
No, I can't.
Okay, we'll pause there, okay? This is what I'm talking about, okay, everybody? I didn't say who's read 5 books. I assume all of you have at least read 5 books, all of you, because, you know, you probably read Shakespeare. I mean, you've read something. But what I'm talking about is if you want to be good at anything, any one thing, internet marketing, social media, content creation, just pick one topic. Some topics are too new, so I forgive you for that, but many topics are not. Go and read all the books that are connected to that are at the top of the recommend list. Just search who are the pioneers in this space, who's written the canon for whatever it is. Some people actually coin a term, and you can read that book. Now, you can say, great, so who else, you're gonna get grilled by me right now, so be careful if you raise your hand again. Who has read 5 books on one topic and can remember the titles and can summarize it and who can teach it? Raise your hand again, please. I'd like to talk to you. And there's no shame if you can't. I'm just pointing out something, okay? Maybe I'm a dork. I admit I'm a dork. Dork, okay, I got it, all right? So I am just nuts. I admit that. I'm crazy nuts, right? So I want to be good at something. And I feel there's this gap between where I am and where I want to be. The best and cheapest way I know how to do that is read a book. You don't even have to own it, read it. It's the cheapest way that you can learn. Buy a book, and I don't mean just kind of look at the book, I mean read it. Read it like you got to teach it. Draw on it, make diagrams, take notes.
Yeah.
Just break that whole book apart. And then do this thing that very few people do syntopical reading. That's where you read from different thought leaders in the same space, you compare and contrast. So if you read a book like I read, I keep note cards, I write the ideas, I say these ideas are the same from these 5 books, this is where they differ, what is my informed opinion now? So I'll give you a classic example. The classic example is who has the advantage, the person who says the price first or second? Who has that answer? Because you hear different thoughts on this. Does anybody know who has the advantage, the person who says the price first or last?
Probably the first. You can do anchoring of the price.
Okay, beautiful. Where did you learn that concept from?
Anchoring from Never Split the Difference. That's one. I don't know if Built to Sell, something like that. I think. What? No. Sometimes I don't remember.
That's something I recognize,
Yeah.
No, I think that's like very honestly, like that's the book. I think I recognize that title. I think you're right with the title.
Yeah, no, Never Split the Difference, of course, but the anchoring, I know Chris Voss teaches this in that book. But I think I caught it in another book, but I don't remember as well.
Okay, this is excellent. So Marco's helping me. Somebody can cross-reference this later. Chris Voss says the exact opposite, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and he gives a story about Raymond Chandler, who came to Hollywood, who's a famous writer, and these producers wanted him to do a movie adaptation. You remember the story now? Is it coming back?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
see?
I read it like 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, I read it like 4 times, so I remember. I've had to teach it too, so here we go, okay? And so he says Raymond Chandler, a famous novelist, is hired by these Hollywood producers to come in, and Raymond Chandler was thinking, what am I going to say for price? So he thinks about it, and he goes to the negotiation table, and they're like, what do you want to charge? He goes, I would take nothing, I don't remember the exact number, nothing less than $1,500. And they looked at each other, and they said, Raymond, we need to hire you an agent. Because $1,500 was way below what they were prepared to pay. Now these were the only ethical producers in Hollywood, apparently, because they didn't want to take advantage of him because they wanted to work with him in the future. They knew if they took advantage of him, then he would never work with them again. So they were very ethical. They hired an attorney for him to negotiate against themselves. So they got a much better deal, and I can't remember the exact price, but it was much higher. So Voss says, most of us do not know what we're doing when it comes to pricing, so we think we go in there like, oh yeah, it'll be $400, take that. And then we're gonna pay you 40 grand. Okay, so I'm not trying to call you out. So there's a big difference. Now, if you read Blair Enns' book, Pricing Creativity, he says you must say it first because you have the anchor bias, right? Yeah. It's a cognitive bias. I looked it up. There's like 137 cognitive biases, too many to remember. So now we're conflicted. One guy, a respected expert in pricing, I love him. He says do it first. Another guy, a masterful negotiator, Mr. Chris Voss, FBI negotiator, says do it second. So what is the answer then? Should you say it first or should you say it second? Then what? You almost had me. You almost had me.
I think it
you
depends.
don't answer.
I'm going to answer myself. I think it depends on how you plan it, essentially.
It's too vague. Well, everybody's pretty close. The answer is, it depends. If you just stop and say it depends, then I have to say, well, it depends on what? Then you have another opportunity to tell me what it depends on. All the clues to this were given to you. It depends on if you know what the F you're doing or not. If you know what you're doing, price it high, anchor high. If you don't know what you're doing, shut up and throw yourself on the mercy of the person in front of you. I've used both successfully. I'll tell you a story in a second, right? So if you go in reading one book from one person that you're gonna go, well, it's $24,000, and they're laughing because it's supposed to be 124, right? But then if you know what you're doing, you never say the price, the client comes in. We've all had this happen, this is why we think this. They're like, well, we got a big budget for you, it's $3,000, and you're thinking it's $26,000. And they anchored you so low, you're like, fudge, I can't say 26 now. If I say 8, they're gonna spit on me. That's more than double. So then when we know what we're doing, we say the price first, not last. And then we'll get into value-based pricing, and then we don't say it until very late, but that's another nuanced thing, all right? I'll give you a couple examples, and Amy and I'll just not disclose the name so I don't get sued. But I'll tell you a story, really briefly, and then you'll see why it matters that you should know what the hell you're talking about and be able to do this in topical reading, compare and contrast different ideas so you can have an informed opinion. That's your main mission in life. You have stupid opinions, move from stupid opinions to informed opinions. And I use the word opinions very deliberately because they're just opinions. When you learn something else, throw away the old opinion, take on a new opinion. It's not fact, it's not law, it's just an opinion, okay? So Amy and I, we're called by an agency because some big electronic company wants to do a sponsored project with me. And the previous sponsored project I've done was for Volvo, and they paid me, I think, $2,500. Tiny little amount. But I was happy because I'd never done a deal like that before. And I got to go to a party, cool. So Amy and I were sitting there, we're talking, and before the call, we always strategize, like, and I like to play a stupid game. The stupid game is who will say the highest price first. And I'm a little shy, so Amy and I are talking. She's like, Chris, I don't know, it's a new industry. We're used to making commercials, so what should we price it? And she goes, 65,000 bucks. In my mind, I was thinking 40, because I anchored myself at 2,500. I was thinking, 40 grand to do some stupid social media post? That's a lot of money. But Amy says 65 or something much higher, and I'm like, that's not a bad number, Amy. Not bad. Proud of you. And I was like, damn, that's 25 more than what I thought. We get on the call, we're talking, and I somehow tell Amy secretly, like, I got this one, okay? And we get down to the part of the conversation where we have to talk about price. It's near the end of the call. I don't know what I'm doing at all. So I say to them, I don't know what I'm doing at all. What do you typically pay people like me to do something like this? I don't want to play any games with you. If you ask me to say a price, I'll say a really high price. You'll be blown away. You'll come back with a real price and we'll negotiate. It's a lot of waste of time. I don't think this is good for either one of us. She goes, you're right. Look, it's not my money. It's $125,000. I'm doing everything I can to be Joe Cool right now because I'm telling you there's probably sweat on my butt crack. I was like, oh my God. I was thinking 40. Amy came in at 65 and they just dropped 120 or 125K on us. What kind of world do we live in for social media? And all of it snapped back to real time. And I said, yeah, I think we can work with that. And she says back to me, Chris, if you need more, let me know. I'm like, will you marry me? What's going on here? I'm happily married, but you know, she's not looking so good right now. So I'm like, yeah, we don't need more money. If something goes crazy, if you guys make us jump through too many hoops, I'll take more money. And so we do the job. So what Amy and I now is we have a new reference point. So every time we negotiate against someone else, we're like, well, we know what that was involved in the size of their company. I got a reference point now. If I have 2 or 3 more reference points, it looks like a pattern. It looks like a pattern. And this, back to your original question, should you generalize or should you be a specialist? Well, specialists see patterns. Generalists see new problems.
Yep.
Generalists are generally broke. Most times they're not happy. We got a crazy one in the back. She's like, I'm happy being broke. But okay, fine. All good by me.
She can't be that broke if she was here today, to be fair.
That's true. We'll say broke-ish, but on our way to being not broke. Yeah? Don't nod. Nobody needs to know who it is. Okay? We're just like,
She comes from money.
Oh, that's probably it.
I'm kidding.
No, we're just messing around, right? So if you do something over and over again, you get to see these beautiful patterns. That's the benefit of being a specialist, to be able to walk in the room and be something called confident. Have you heard of that word? Because a lot of you suffer from imposter syndrome, lacking confidence, being very insecure, and the reason why is because you don't know what you're doing. I walk in a room, I know what the keynote's going to be like. When they ask for crazy stuff, I'm like, it's not happening. I know, because you see the problem over and over again.
Yeah, that's true.
We took you on a wild ride. I don't know if any of it made any sense. I hope I did.
And
I
can
might
I
be
just add to your
delirious.
point about the, like, listening to Chris, I don't know about you guys, but it's making me want to go back and study some key books. And it,
So
yeah.
And
You're
rethink.
gonna-
And-
we're
and read
competitors,
it.
guys. I didn't know this, but I found out we're competitors today. I found out we're still competing products. Yeah. What is your program called again?
I don't think we're competing.
Okay.
But I remembered a conversation that I had with Marco, and he mentioned that, like, he wanted to make his team culture better.
Yep.
And he spent a year and a half, I think you said, implementing principles from the one book. And I was like,
Which
okay.
book is that?
Radical Candor.
Radical
right?
Candor.
Oh, Radical Candor. I have
Yeah,
that book.
Yeah.
And
Have you
so,
read it?
like, to
No.
me,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what it was like. Okay, well, this is how that's one way we should be consuming books. Because if we think about the author, it's years of experience that they're putting into something as concisely as possible. And we read it in one sitting, and then, you know, it's like, sorry, Sophia, but, you know, it's like Sophia can't recall the 5 principles. Now, Marco, because he studied and implemented, maybe he can tell you a bunch of things from Radical Candor. And
Who's
I
this
think
person?
that's-
So it's Kim Scott. I might be
Your friend?
saying. No.
No, the author?
Oh no, but you're talking about a human being who.
Marco.
Hi.
Oh, Marco.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I was like, who are you talking about? I thought you were talking about a guy named Michael.
Marco.
Marco. Oh, this guy.
Marco.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you read it. Okay, Radical Candor. I'm sorry. I'm like, Michael. Who the frick is Michael? Where's Michael?
Now it's making more sense what she was saying.
Yeah, now,
Yeah.
okay, now it makes sense. Like, why you keep looking at him? You're talking about Michael's rude. Okay, all right.
It's a common friend we have. And you're like, yes,
Yeah,
that sucks.
yeah.
Leaving me out. So I'm getting crazy messages from Philippe. Philippe, are you out there?
He's
Oh,
right.
you're there. I was looking
I
for you.
was looking at him.
Yeah. Do we have the pizzas already? We have the pizzas. Okay. So
Questions?
yeah, I think we probably have time for some questions. Who wants the mic? Who has a question?
The mics are here. Raise your hand and
Yeah, we got someone
We'll
down
just
there.
throw it
Oh,
at
I
him.
cannot actually
I
move.
do it. I got
yeah,
you.
because I'm stuck to the chair.
I got you. You just flip this up when you're ready. Can you just hand it down? Pretend it's like a hot potato.
You're good.
You have to flip it
yeah.
up.
I'd like to ask you, what would be your one advice to your 20-year-old you? In terms of business, in creative, in general.
So should we just go down the line?
Sure.
Michael?
Let's start from Joanna.
Jojo? We're just make up names for people now? Joanna?
Oh, gosh. Just believe in yourself. Just keep doing what you're, like, don't second doubt everything. And just clarity will come from action.
Basically confidence, right?
Yeah.
Did you say basically communist?
Confidence.
Confidence.
My God, I am not understanding this accent, guys. I apologize. Like, how is that communism? This is fantastic. Woo! And you all agreed, so I'm like, I'm the guy who's weird here. Okay. The answer is communism. Okay. My one advice to my 20-year-old self is get on that content game right now. I started making content at 42. Could you imagine what kind of a killer I would be right now if I had 30 some odd years of doing this? I'd rule the world. We'd be like, teach 2 billion people, because 1 billion is not challenging enough, right? So I'm 42, so I'm 51 now. I'm 9 years into making content. I'm just getting started. So multiply that by 3 and you're gonna have something crazy. So we live in the attention economy. Attention is worth more than oil. It's the new oil. What's cool about it is, first of all, attention doesn't kill the planet, and anyone here can have their own oil factory and make whatever it is that you want. If you are willing to play the long game and start learning how to build, capture, and leverage attention, you'll do really well for yourself. Because can you imagine, you know that story I told you about this large consumer electronics company paid me 120 grand? That was the easiest, dumbest money I've ever made in my life. Now, they did torture us a little bit. And it's like, no, can you revise that? But I'm being a child now, like, nah, I'm right. I'll work on it for another hour. It's just me working on my phone, like, okay, you don't like that caption. Let me fix it for you. Where in the world did that happen? I remember slaving over a computer for like $5,000 and thanking them for the experience while I cried myself to sleep. Now I get to do that? What the heck? And so Dave and Annalie, we were talking about like, okay, so if we live in the attention economy, what is the currency? So we're trying to figure out what is the currency of the attention economy. I think it's value multiplied by time. Give tremendous value over long periods of time, and is divided by you asking for something, okay? Value multiplied by time divided by you asking, a sale, a pitch. So what you want to do is to give the most amount of value consistently for the longest period of time while never asking for something. If you do this for 2 or 3 years, you will be a millionaire. I guarantee you it. So that's my advice to my 20-year-old self. Michael?
That's good.
Thank you.
Sorry, just Marco?
Yeah, so my advice would be don't be so precious about what other people think about you, because most people out there have no idea what they are doing. So if you have that mindset, I think you can get past most people out there. I think that's simple enough.
I thought you were going to say, don't think about what most people are thinking about you, because most people aren't thinking about you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's okay.
I mean, that's at the root. But
let's be real.
But what I mean is, sometimes people don't try something. Of course, that's the genesis of it. But then the idea is, what do you do with that? Is you go out there and try as many things as you can. You make a lot of mistakes, because no one is really paying that much attention to you either way. And through that process, and because you really don't care, you ask all the questions that you need to ask, etc., like the one that you just did. I don't know if you're 20 years old, but you get my point. It's completely okay to ask whatever questions you need if you don't really care about what other people will think about you. As long as you're growing in that process, eventually you will get to a point where you are the smartest people in that room, and you probably need to move to another room or just find other sources of inspiration, you know. That would be my advice. Don't be too precious about what other people think about you, because it really doesn't matter, and if you remain curious, you will surpass everyone.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thanks for your question. Do we have another question? I think we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
I can get it though. Okay.
He's coming.
He's gone. He's going to beat me to it.
Well, I don't know if it's really a question, but I'm maybe the most skeptic person here about some points you discussed. Like,
Skeptic?
for example,
Yeah.
septic.
So no, skeptic.
Skeptic.
Yeah, that's the
Skeptic,
yeah,
yes,
that's
sorry.
Portuguese accent.
Skeptic, yes, skeptic. So, for example, the point people don't pay much when it's Portugal. Well, for me, it's Spain. So in Spain, I've been doing business on a web agency for 5 years. I don't even know how I'm still standing. But what I'm saying is like, in the beginning, I was like, yeah, people come and expect to have lower prices because it's Spain. It's a fact. Actually, in Europe, it's a fact. I don't have clients outside from Europe, so I don't know. But in Europe, it's a fact. And eventually, I just stopped saying yes, and I started saying no. And I say it so many times no until now. And maybe that's why I'm not billing what I should bill. But so my asking would be, what advice could you give me to reach that people who eventually will say yes?
Are you skeptical of what I said or somebody else said?
No, about like saying that people don't care where you're from or where you are, where your web agency is based, because what matters is what you do, how you do. Well, I'm mostly agreeing with that, but the thing is where to find those clients who will take you for your value and not for expecting that you will ask less money because you are in Spain.
Okay. Can I answer the question?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I think the general idea of your question is, how do I prevent people exploiting people who live in a country where the cost of living might be lower, generally speaking, right? Because people are going to try to exploit you. This happens. There are people, and I know some people like this literally, where they search through Behance and they filter by countries in Europe that have the lowest cost of living or annual salary, and they start there. And they know, because those people are very desperate, and a little bit of money for us is a lot of money for them. They're scumbags. I'll just put it out there. We're all just human, and all this geography is just all imaginary differences between how we are. So let's put that aside for a second. You say you have evidence, and it's a fact. I raise your evidence in fact, and I go all in on my fact. So now we'll have to just agree whether your fact is stronger than my fact, okay? I can tell you as a person who lives in the United States, when we hire, we don't even know where anybody is. We just don't care. When we're looking for a web developer, we found a company in Europe, I want to say in Eastern Europe or Belarus, I don't know where they are. And the way I found out about them is one of my friends did some vetting and flew to different web development companies. There are hundreds of people there. He says, these guys are good guys. They do good work. They're honest. They're credible. I vetted. He just referred it to us, and we just love them to death. Whatever they charge, I'm like, I pay. We don't even negotiate because they're so good. And we love the fact that they can expand from 3 people on a team to 100 if we need to, and we never have problems. The problems we have are with American companies, American developers, because they suck. Because you know why? There are only a few people. They don't have the ability to expand, and they are constantly overextended and missing deadlines, which put me in a really bad position. So when we found out these people, I was just in love. Like, you guys just do great work, and you're easy to work with, and you put someone on our timeline, our time zone, and it's beautiful. So much so that I start referring to everybody who wants to know who these people are. And then someone who I was coaching, I referred them to the same development company, and they were equally grateful because they're amazing. And this guy said, just that one referral saved me $30,000. This is fantastic. I want to work with them all the time. And we don't negotiate against their price. We just work with them, okay? I hire people from all over the world. I have since the beginning of the time which I can hire people from the internet. We just don't care. They're from the UK? Great. You're from India? I don't care. Where it gets really sketchy for me, unfortunately, is some people in different parts of the world behave poorly. And it starts to taint the experience. And so you start to think, oh, all people from this region, not easy to work with. And then it becomes very difficult. I am unaware that Portugal has a bad reputation around the world. I don't believe you do. Some parts of the world, I don't want to say, they have a bad reputation, so you get really skeptical. Okay, so I hire whoever, and the companies that look to hire to exploit local economies, I understand why they do that. They want to get the most and pay the least. But here's the thing. If you make it impossible for me to tell the difference between your work and the other work, I don't know what they're basing it on anymore. Is it like when they finally get on the phone because they love your work and there's no difference, that they hear an accent, they're like, where are you from? That now they're going to all of a sudden change the price? And then I have to ask you this question. So if someone from the UK, from the United States or Germany moved to Portugal, because I think there are a lot of people here, that all of a sudden when somebody calls them and they see a Portuguese address, that they're going to say, now we're going to pay you less? How does that work? And if you went to America with the same exact portfolio, change your to a .com address, will you get paid a lot more? What do you think the answer is?
So here the thing should be like referrals then. Like getting the most referrals as we can to make people understand that our value is there, that we actually can provide the work and very good work. Because honestly, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most of people who are in a normal condition, let's say like starting or normal income in Portugal, Spain, and other countries where we normally earn less money than other countries, what we see is that people just don't want to pay. Whether you are very good or not, they come to me and say, yeah, but I just need a website. Not much. If you take out that,
yeah, people say that to me. I'm in America.
And I eventually, of course, stopped saying yes. I said, no, I have my dignity because I know how to do the job. Like, I'm an expert in that and that. So honestly, I want to get paid for that. But then you say so many times no, and how you get those referrals if you say always no, and then you never get like big project that you can say, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
My portfolio is really good. I'm sorry, I'm
No,
extending
no worries, no worries. I actually want to weigh in a bit on that. Again, to give you a bit of context, I had my own agency, and I was able to escape that cage that you're talking about. I think, and Chris touched on this today, your belief system carries a lot of weight in all of that experience, first of all. Because if you start believing that you are a part of a better industry, of a more elite group of professionals in the world, et cetera, you will start to adjust everything about you, about your business, in accordance to serving the audience that is looking for that kind of service, okay? I think what you have at the moment is probably you've had a few bad clients. Those bad clients also do referrals, so they will do word of mouth as well. So they will get the job done from you. They will potentially exploit you. Sometimes they know they are exploiting you. Sometimes they do it voluntarily. Sometimes they do it just because they have no other option, because they have to. But ultimately, they get the job done, and they will tell their colleagues, friends, etc. about you. Like, oh, these guys, they do good work. They will talk about price often, talking about someone who owns businesses. We talk about price often when we're talking about providers, suppliers. So you are immediately in a box. When people approach you, coming from that network, they come with a bunch of expectations. And either you are able to transform the experience, the sale experience, get it a lot better, and hopefully you also find better nuggets of clients, you know, or else you will never get out of this, you know. So I've seen companies who were in this kind of rut, and they went to such extremes of doing a completely rebrand of their business, different name, different logo, different website, different everything, apart from the people and the talent that they had in there, because they understood we've built a bad brand. The brand that we've built is attracting the wrong kind of people, wrong kind of clients, and we're actually better off starting with a clean slate. And we can, of course, talk about, oh yeah, we've had experience building X, Y, and Z, whatever. But you don't really talk about your clients, past clients. It's a new business. And if you approach it with that new mentality of, oh, I want to be at this level, you create again that sales experience. You get good qualifying criteria in terms of, do I advance with this conversation or not? You don't have to be a prick about it. You can have a really good experience even when you are not taking on the work, because that has happened to me in the past. I've rejected work because I understood I'm not able to serve this client within the constraints that they are giving me. But they were very positively impressed about the business, and they ended up actually referring us to other better paying clients because they had the funds to actually pay for it.
That's nice.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's just simple, and we'll land the plane on this one. If I could clone you, exact person, exact portfolio, and one person received tremendous coaching from Marco, Joanna, or myself, maybe all three of us agreed to help your clone, do you think that person would be able to charge more than the clone that didn't have any extra training? I'm just curious.
I guess yes, because yes, definitely, because
okay.
Even if I've been doing business for 7 years, 5 with my own business, we need to learn constantly different things, and most important, we need to learn with those who have much more experience than us. So yes,
so
definitely.
We're saying that there can be change that can happen. If we literally clone you, same portfolio, same persons, living in the same city, and we had a lot of coaching and training for one person, they might be able to charge more, maybe a lot more, maybe they'll be able to solve this problem. You think that there's a possibility of that happening, right? I think you already said yes. I was just
Yeah.
confirming with you.
Yeah.
You want to change your mind?
I don't know if I would say yes completely.
Okay, then I know what the problem is.
Yes, of course, yes, because we get more experience and more.
Yeah, I believe you just said
so
that.
yes, but
No, but, please.
there is a but.
You know, I don't
Everyone
like
has a
buts.
but. Everyone has a but.
We still have the same company, the same name, and the same kind
100%
of
the same.
business. All same, right?
Yeah, same.
Or only the person.
We duplicate you, and then we create two parallel timelines. You now, and the new you gets to work with all three of us for a period of 6 months, and we train that person. Of course, at that point, they know things differently, they write differently, they present themselves differently, they speak differently, they present their portfolio differently, they're making super strategic, but we're not giving them any money, just knowledge. So can we have a definitive answer? Because how you answer this will tell me what the problem is. Does that new you have a greater chance of achieving whatever goal that you said? Would your answer be yes, or would it be no?
Actually, it's frustrating because even if I answer yes, I'm not convinced 100%.
Okay, that's true. That's it. I know what the problem is. Thank you. Okay, what's the next?
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to.
Well, I was going to tell
what is my
everybody in the room knows the problem, and I don't think I need to say it. Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, you don't know the problem?
I don't.
No, I don't know
I'm
what
lost.
is
Okay, I'm going to have to say it. I don't mean to be rude. The problem is you.
Oh.
If you literally cannot believe that the three of us, I'm not saying I'm not smart. Joanna's super smart. Marco's super smart. That the three of us, with all our intellect, our power, our experience, we can train someone. So you say basically you're untrainable. Maybe the clone of you is also untrainable. We don't know that. But how can we say that knowledge doesn't change anything? If we say that, then we've resigned to the fact that nothing can ever change. That's a dark future. It might be true, but it's not one I want to believe in. Because I myself have benefited by every time I learn something new, my net worth, my ability to build more goes up exponentially.
But that was not the initial question, which means after 5 years doing business, of course we can still learn and we still do better. We can still make any progress and even charge more, of course. But at that point, after 5 years doing, we already acquired some knowledge, I hope. Otherwise, I would not be here.
No doubt.
So, I mean, at the point I am, even if I can do much better, I'm still stuck like if I was in the first year, basically.
I understand.
That was only the question.
Yeah, but
I'm not discounting where you are, how hard you've worked, and the sacrifices you've had to make, and the struggles. I feel it in you. I really do, and it sucks. I feel that pain. I really do. And I was just to say this, okay? And we probably need to move on, right? Yeah, see, you open a can of worms there. I'll say this. If you want to learn, no one can stop you. If you don't want to learn, no one can teach you. That was the problem. That's it.
Yeah,
Don't want to say anymore.
No, that's a
All
good point. That's a good point.
Thank you.
And I think we can take this after,
Okay.
over some pizza,
Yeah,
probably.
Probably, yeah. Drown me with pizza, please. Put me out. Hit me in the face with a slice of pizza. Okay.
Okay.
Do we have one more question?
Okay, one last question,
one.
short one, so we can have
Finish
the pizza.
strong.
The finished
Land
slice.
the plane.
We have
Finish strong. Who's
a
got the mic?
gentleman there.
Gentleman there. Can you hand him the mic?
The mic?
please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, teamwork makes the dream work. Ooh,
well.
you don't need to do that.
I don't know if it is finishing strong, but I'll try to live up to it. When beginning, I understand branding as a very versatile work that can come up from, I'm not going to say a picture, but a mood board, a logo. And I think the brand can be created from something simpler than just to beginning from where we think it should begin, from strategy and having that linear process. I think in a way I understand it as a process that can be more liquid, you know, and we can drive it towards the complete package, let's say. How important it is when founding a creating agency, a creative studio, and when hiring talent and people, to have that framework, that linearity, that process being established? Or should we just let the people that work for us, that we hired, decide what's better? Is this okay?
Yeah. I can give an answer. And
Can you repeat the question for me?
yeah. So I think what he's asking is, what's your name?
Nico.
Nico. I think what Nico is asking is, when starting a business, an agency, is it important to have the process for branding specifically, I think, already completely laid out, and essentially people will follow a process, or do we let the potentially the specialists that you are hiring themselves set that process? I think that was the question.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Not finishing strong, sorry, mate.
No, that's fine. You wanna, or we have a brand specialist as well. Yeah.
Essentially, it's not absolute confirmation that that was your question. I would prefer to answer the question. So, friend, one of the things that makes questions like yours very difficult to answer is the compounded multi-part question. If you can eliminate all the components and the facets, try to focus in on the one thing you want to know. Because in the next 30 seconds, people are going to give you answers that may not even solve your problem. So just take your time to think about it. Start your question with who, what, when, where, why, how, and just land it, please.
How important it is to have a linear process in the beginning of an agency to lead
Just
people.
Okay, sorry. That was perfect. How important is it to have a linear process when starting a creative agency? That was your question, right? If you keep adding more, our heads are going to explode, because there's a lot to unpack there. And this is a lovely question for Joanna to answer. Go ahead, competitor.
I know. I personally have always just thrown the hat on the other side of the wall. So that means like I would say yes and then figure it out later. So to answer your question, I wouldn't want something like, oh, I need to get my process in place before I start selling. Like, I don't know if that's what you're going through right now, but I would figure it out on the job with the first client, and then at the end, debrief. How can we do it better next time? Iterate and keep improving the process as with each project. And not think about the process in a vacuum. Think about it through action.
Yeah, I think that's essentially it from me, from my experience. That's how we did it as well, and it was never really perfect. So whatever you are going to try and create a perfect diamond in the beginning, once that diamond hits reality, you realize it's just charcoal, and oh, I need to change a bunch of things. I think it's very good. Well, it depends on who you are also looking at that process. If you're already a specialist in that specific field, I'm sure you have a lot already to get started. But then I think it's useful also if you're hiring good professionals to have them weigh in, because not only they feel that they are more than just carrying donkeys, like they're part of the process. They're building something bigger than just executing mindless tasks. You might learn a lot from people with different experiences as well, and that's about it, I think.
I think you have a really good question. And I think you're very mindful of the future. I think we all should strive to have a clear process with predictable results. And the clearer your process is, the easier it is to sell your services and create certainty in the mind of your buyer. Certainty is one of the best ways for you to sell for more money with less friction. The less certain you are with your results, what Blair Enns would say, low variability in process equals low variability in outcome. We want to guarantee things, so you have a clear process, because Marco, you were talking about before, used to be that designers have no idea what they're doing, and it just spit things out, and they just like pull it from God or something, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. From a buyer's perspective, that's super scary. So that's excellent you're thinking about the future. Now, one of the things in your condition was when you're starting out. So that becomes a problem, and they both have addressed it really well. How the hell do you know what your process is, because you haven't even started yet, right? So when you're starting out, it's important that you start thinking about that process, and maybe you're wired differently than most of us, where you think process, and you're a process-oriented, systems design thinking kind of person. You could design a process, and you can test it and test it and test it internally until you're ready to take on clients, and you can try it out and validate whether or not the process is good. And you make tweaks. Most likely, what it is you're in the kitchen, you're throwing stuff around, you're seeing what hits the wall, and you formulate a hypothesis once you're deep into it, many clients in, and you're like, oh, I think I have a pattern. Clients come to us, there's always a problem, it always breaks here. I'm going to try and fix that. And you keep doing that over and over, and you iterate on the same problem over and over again until you have this really beautiful, refined process. And if you have a really beautiful, refined process that's been proven over time, you have a body of evidence, you can actually sell that process. You call the process something. Nico's no-fail process. Use your name, use alliteration, you might make it rhyme, beautiful. Now you're going to be seen as a thought leader and expert. Now it's called Nico's no-fail system. Just like Simon Sinek calls it, start with why. It's a foundational idea that everybody knows, but he gives it a term. And everybody who wants to be seen as an expert, just make up a stupid name for your process and call it something. Literally call it that. You know, Adidas, they have a sole, right? It's the cushion. They call it Adiprene. Now it's a product. You know, Nike has Boost, or I don't know what they have. Everybody has something. They call every single thing something, because then it's trademarkable and it seems like it's special and unique only to them. Just call your process something. Write about it. Try to tear your process apart. Make diagrams. Go on lecture circuits and just do that over and over again. You will be the expert in that space probably within 2 years. And you're like, I just made it up. That's how it works. It's that easy. So good forward-thinking question. The only problem is you're just starting. So you have to make a mess. And you need to know this. To be innovative is to be messy and wasteful. You cannot be innovative while being efficient. They're counter-opposing ideas. People say this all the time. We want to be efficient and innovative. That's BS. Sorry I had to end it on that. That sounds
no,
Yeah,
that's good.
great.
okay.
Certified by a Chief Innovation Officer.
It's all right.
I think that's it. We're completely over time. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today, and thank you also to this amazing crowd, all the feedback and questions that you had. We'll be around for quite a while now. We'll have pizzas. Feel free. By the way, there are some vegan options. There are they marked? Yeah. If you have food restrictions, there's vegan. And enjoy yourselves.
Can I say something before we go?
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say a quick thank you to Joana. If it wasn't for her, we'd be in Lisbon, maybe not. But she said, F that, come to Porto, I'll make it work. And you know what she did? She's amazing, by the way. Even though we're competitors, she's amazing. You know what she said? How many tickets have you sold? I'll buy all those tickets. You have a guarantee, come here. How cool is that? So then Joana introduced me to her friend Marco and said, it's Marco. He said, Marco, hey, let's make something happen. Let's host. And so I'm super appreciative. This is a beautiful space. I made a joke before. It's like we rented Apple's studio without the apples, you know? And it's really cool. So we'll call this Orange, and it's been wonderful. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who's shown up to the workshop. And if not, as friends or fans, I appreciate you 1,000%. Thank you so much.
And a big thank you to you, Chris.
Yeah,
Round of applause.
Thank you.